This is Damien Fullerton here. I'm one of the senior account managers here at Socedo. We're doing Socedo Live for you today, hashtag Socedo Live. Our topic of discussion is squashing the beef between marketing and sales, kind of making them aligned. If you have any questions throughout this, go ahead and tweet at Tina, who's in the background, at hashtag Socedo Live. Really, we wanted to have this conversation because sales and marketing, obviously two important parts of every single business. So making sure that they're aligned is going to be crucial in any business, right? I think between marketing and sales, the first thing to properly understand is their role in a typical organization. So sales, obviously they drive revenue, they close business, they get paid on commission or bonuses most of the time. So their primary goal is really to hit their quotas and get paid. Their quotas are based on revenue, and that's it. Marketing, they generate engagements, branding, content, and leads. Their quotas are based on those things. So they're based on how many leads they're providing to the sales team. And if marketing's job is to generate leads and sales is to close business from those leads, then why is there a constant issue between the two? I think a lot of it has to do with misinformation, miscommunication, really not being aligned on your buyer's journey and each other's goals. So I think one of the most important things I want to talk about today is really understanding your buyer's journey and understanding who's responsible for that. So when the team can align on a buyer's journey, which should be an in-depth conversation you have between the two teams, you can finally start understanding each other. So let's take a look at a typical buyer's journey here. Let me grab a board here. Really for a lot of organizations, and this could be a SaaS organization or really any organization, the way that things are is a lot of times people will have intent leads. And these can be things like a demo request or a free trial sign up, or maybe if you're in the services business, a consultation request. And so these are people that already are showing intent. They've already done some sort of research and they've already want information. From there, people can easily go to, let's say a trial, which is, it doesn't have to necessarily just be a trial. It can also be the actual consultation. They requested one, you go on site, you talk to them. It could be a demo of your product, or maybe even you're going through the process, selling to them, sending out proposals. And then from there, obviously you have closed won deals. This is a very, very simple buyer's journey, right? And this is comfortable. We know how many times we get people, or what percentage of people that we get into an intent lead actually go through this process and convert. This is a pretty normal, you can forecast it's going to be a certain percentage of people, right? And I think where a lot of the problems come in is when you start introducing different types of leads. And so, there's going to be a lot of different leads you're going to be introducing over time. Things that are, content leads. Content leads are going to be things like case study signups, webinars, ebooks. The marketing team is spending a lot of money and a lot of effort getting these sort of content leads. There could be some company interest leads. So not quite intent, but things like maybe you met somebody at an event, right? They know about the company. They may not be quite ready to sign up for a trial or anything like that, but they know about the company, they're familiar with it, and you want to reach out. There's also industry, pardon my bad handwriting here. There's also industry type leads. So things, even if they're just, maybe you buy a list because they're the right demographics, they're a good fit for the company, they are following your brand on Twitter, or they're engaging with a certain event hashtag that you're going to be attending. These are good leads, but they're not very warm. And so I think one of the biggest problems that we find is sales is very comfortable with this process here. And as soon as you start introducing new different types of lead sources, everything gets confused. If we could turn all of these things into intent leads, then this percentage should stay the same. And so I think that's one of the big goals between the two companies, or between the two departments, that we need to do. So once we kind of align this and figure out what the actual buyer journey is, so maybe industry is the least likely to purchase right away. And so that's kind of your first step in a buyer journey. they're the right type of lead, they're the right industry, maybe content leads kind of come falling behind here. Those are the people that are signing up for webinars. Maybe that webinar is pretty general or pretty broad. They may not be your company specific, but they're good content. They are starting to show signs that they're relevant to you, and then maybe showing company interest, kind of fills out that line. And as soon as you define what that buyer's journey is, then we can start aligning like where's the responsibility between those two. So the next question is like, who's the responsible for those? How can we align those two departments now that we understand a buyer's journey? Marketing uses marketing automation or email campaigns to really warm these people up, and they do a fantastic job of getting them to a certain point. They download something and that should be good enough, right? But sales a lot of times says, those aren't any good. And that's the question that we're trying to answer today is like, why? Really it's pretty simple. Sales, I'm a salesperson here, and even though I'm pretty familiar with the marketing technology, we always seem to take the path of least resistance to hitting our quotas. If there's a chance we can hit our quota by only focusing on intent leads, we will, right? We're trained on presenting, on demoing, on selling, on closing, and we know how many calls are going to be needed to convert someone from here into a closed deal. We can plan for a general timeline, and we know what challenges we have to overcome, and we know how what that process is. As soon as you throw in a completely different type of lead into the mix, everything changes. So all of a sudden, instead of a well-known process, very well-defined, there's going to be multiple processes. All of a sudden, in an intent lead, as a salesperson, I know if I follow this, I can close a certain percentage of people, but you give me a content lead, and that might take 10 calls or emails just to get them on the phone, where it might take a couple more calls or emails to get them into this stage. So now I can't really organize my day the same, because content leads, intent leads, they're going to have to be treated very differently. And so I'm going to get confused, the sales team is going to get confused, a little bit overwhelmed possibly, and then so that's when we start deciding to take the path of least resistance and only on focusing on what we know. That's where you kind of get this mindset where you think the mindset on sales is like, hey, intent leads, that's all I want, everything else is kind of crap. Even though they're great leads, a lot of it has to do with we just don't know how to work those into our daily process. Now, a lot of you think, sales, obviously you should be calling every lead, and I completely agree. But it's not really about what we should be doing, it's really about what happens every day out there in the world. And so, what's the answer? If sales doesn't want to call those leads, why are we even spending money on generating them? And that's a good question, right? Why indeed would you be spending money on leads that nobody's calling? The answer, a lot of it is because those are the metrics that you assign or you put on marketing that they're responsible for. They're responsible for a certain amount of leads that you need to push over to sales, no matter the quality. Marketing doesn't understand sales, sales doesn't understand marketing. There's a couple of answers to help bridge that gap and really squash the beef between the two departments. One of the most successful, and I'm actually going to be running another webinar on the importance of SDRs, that process and building that out. Is to take those content leads, put someone in charge on a sales development rep, for example, or what's more commonly becoming an MDR. A lot of times you'll start seeing these marketing development reps work directly with marketing to be able to turn some of these people that have shown some sort of interest via content or industry interest and actually turn them into intent leads for the salesperson. And as soon as you can start specializing in two different processes, the company's going to be a lot more successful. Today, though, what we'll talk about is a few tips of what you can do to, if you don't have the resources to hire a brand new position and to get people on the same page. The first thing, and one of my favorite meetings every single week, is actually working directly with the marketing department itself. So someone from sales or a couple of people from sales meet with our marketing department every single week, and we want to ask questions to each other. So marketing, we want them to say what questions and objections have that we heard from prospects recently? How can marketing support sales with content? What are the conversion rates and sales velocity for leads from these different lead sources? Understanding that is really going to show where the leaks in the bucket are, so to speak. Then we can decide if we need better content provided, if sales needs additional training, or processes need to be just refined. So, the other question that's really important, and to provide a little bit of ownership to the sales team itself, is asking if we still agree on the definition of an MQL. Don't allow the marketing team only to define what an MQL is, or the sales team. Get them in a room, have them communicate with each other, because communication is going to be the number one key that's going to help this problem, and decide together what that MQL is. By asking sales as part of that, what qualifies, is really going to add ownership to them. So when you do provide those leads, you can literally go to the sales team and say, you asked for these, and now you have to do something with them. And once you've established an open dialogue between marketing and sales, really prioritize that alignment. Make sure the C-level and the executives are on board. Instead of just setting marketing quotas on leads generated, something that you can do is make the requirement slightly further down the funnel, right? You can, instead of just providing overall amount of leads, maybe you say, hey, we're going to make your quotas based on SQLs, sales qualified leads, sales accepted leads, or maybe even opportunities. Here at Socedo, we do a really good job of making sure marketing and sales is aligned by focusing on how many opportunities were created. And so marketing is able to tell a month or two down the road if this new lead source is actually creating opportunities, and if it's not, good, let's stop spending money on that lead source and let's focus on the ones that are actually getting converted into opportunities faster. What that helps also on the marketing side, you get to tell them that they don't have to generate so many overall leads, but the ones that are better quality, the ones that they are setting, those are going to be converting at a higher rate, which obviously their quotas go down, but conversions go up. That better benefits everyone. So really continue that weekly dialogue. I think make that part of the business plan there. Let marketing and sales meet about lead quality and content, discuss ideas, ways to improve. Better communication is really, really going to be the key factor here to bridging that gap and squashing the beef between sales and marketing. Like I said, there's a whole another webinar that we'll do on the power of having an SDR to kind of fill this role, but definitely follow those couple of suggestions to help bridge that gap between marketing and sales.